Hey friends, I hope your week is off to a great start. Today I'm going to be testing out Bon Appetit's best chocolate chip cookie. So in the past you've seen me try the brown butter toffee chocolate chunk cookie that Rick demonstrated. Then I tested that cookie recipe against Claire Saffitz's best salty chocolate chunk cookie. And now Bon Appetit is back with an all-new chocolate chip cookie recipe developed by Chris Morocco. I'm really excited to test this recipe today because I am a huge fan of chocolate chip cookies. Plus, since I've tested several Bon Appetit chocolate chip cookie recipes in the past, I've got something to compare this recipe against. So I do these Bon Appetit recipe tests every single Wednesday. If you like this one, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. All right, without any further ado, let's see how this goes. As always, I'll leave a link to the recipe and the ingredient quantities in the description box below. Bon Appetit provided the ingredient quantities in both measured and weighed amounts. However, I found that the 200 grams of Appe flour called for in the recipe actually should have been a little bit closer to 225 grams. So my cookies spread out a ton, and I read a lot of reviews online where people said that their cookies spread out significantly as well. So you're gonna wanna plus the flour up just a bit from what BA called for in the written recipe. So next I'm making the brown butter. If you've been on the channel for a while, you've seen me do this a few times. Basically, you're placing 1 stick of butter in a heavy bottom saucepan over medium-high heat. And you're just gonna cook this until the butter melts down, and then it will start to foam. You wanna keep scraping the bottom of the pan with a heat-proof spatula just to prevent anything from burning. And what you're really doing is just toasting the milk solids in the butter. So you're looking for a nice color change to happen. You can see that mine kind of reaches a really dark golden color to kind of like a light tan brown. And once you're at that point, you wanna get it off the heat, pour that melted brown butter into a heat-proof bowl and set this aside for about 1 minute. After about 1 minute, your brown butter should be cooled off and not be spattering and kind of boiling still. So then we can add in the chopped cold butter. And basically what we're doing here is cooling down the hot brown butter and melting our cold butter. So this is gonna give us a nice room temperature brown butter that we can work with straight away. So next I'm just combining all my wet ingredients. What's kind of interesting about this cookie recipe is that it uses a ton of dark brown sugar. So you've got a cup of packed dark brown sugar and only a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. So the proportions here are pretty much the inverse of a typical chocolate chip cookie recipe. However, that dark brown sugar gives you a really great flavor in this recipe. So you want to just whisk together the sugar and the melted brown butter until it's fully incorporated. You don't want to have a really gritty mixture. This was kind of hard to do with a whisk. It just took some work, but I got there eventually. Once I did, I added in my 2 egg yolks and the whole egg, and again, whisking to get this all combined and get rid of the streaks, and then just adding in my vanilla extract as well. So this recipe said to mix by hand with a whisk. It's totally fine. It wasn't that hard to do. However, my stand mixer sits on the counter, and it's really not a big deal for me to use that on a weeknight even. So I think the next time I make this, I'm definitely just gonna use my stand mixer. Once you've got your prepared dry ingredients folded through the dough and all of the streaks are gone, you can add in your chocolate. So I chose to use these chocolate wafers because I really like how they melt in the cookies. However, I think the next time I make this, I'm going to chop up half of the wafers and leave half of the wafers whole. I found that using like these really big discs gave me some really great chocolate puddles. However, it was hard to get an even distribution throughout the dough. So the recipe called for a 3 tablespoon portion on these cookies, which is coincidentally twice the size of the cookies that I typically make. So I'm portioning using the OXO medium cookie scoop, which is 1.5 tablespoons. So I did 1 tray of these really big cookies like the recipe called for, which baked for 10 minutes. I also did a tray of just single scoop 1.5 tablespoon cookies, which is more standard for me, and this baked for only 8 minutes. So you can see that my cookies are really spreading out a ton in the oven, and this is the finished product. So the cookies are done baking and I let them cool completely on their baking sheets. And this is the size comparison between the 3 tablespoon version and the 1.5 tablespoons. So you can see it's quite a size difference. Both cookies are pretty thin overall, so there was quite a bit of spread during the baking process. The brown butter scent on these cookies is fantastic, so I'm super excited to give these a taste. All right, so we'll get up and close. You can see it's got a really nice texture on the surface. A little bit of brownness around the edges. I could have left it maybe another minute longer. Going for the break. So this is a little bit chewy. Still gooey chocolate there. That looks fantastic. Let's see. A little bit of crispiness around the edges. The center is nice and gooey. Oh my God, there's so much chocolate in here. This is insane. So good. So overall, I am super impressed with this cookie. So it's got everything that I look for from a taste and texture perspective. So the taste of this cookie is a little bit complex with the dark brown sugar and the brown butter, but at the same time, it still feels very classic and traditional and in that kind of normal chocolate chip cookie family. It's just a little bit elevated. So I really like that. Then the texture is just like nothing I've ever had before. It's crispy on the edges, chewy and gooey in the center, so it's kind of checking all of those boxes at once. So I am a huge fan of this cookie recipe, and I'm pretty sure that this is going to be my new go-to chocolate chip cookie recipe. So I really hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.